Major Klaus Reinhardt sat hunched over his desk in the requisitioned French chateau that served as Luftflotte 2 headquarters, studying reconnaissance photographs through a magnifying glass until his eyes burned. Outside, the September sun cast long shadows across the manicured gardens, but Reinhardt had not looked up from his working hours. Around him, the intelligence section hummed with activity as junior officers compiled reports, updated maps, and typed summaries for the daily briefing. But Reinhardt barely noticed the noise. His entire focus remained fixed on a single disturbing question that had been growing in his mind for weeks. Where were the British getting their fighters? The photographs spread across his desk showed RAF airfields across southern England, taken during yesterday's reconnaissance missions. Reinhardt had been tracking these same bases since July, documenting damage from Luftwaffe attacks, counting aircraft dispersals, estimating squadron strength. And what he saw in these latest photos made no sense whatsoever. Tangmere, heavily bombed 2 weeks prior, now showed more hurricanes dispersed around its perimeter than before the attack. If you want to discover more untold stories from World War II, subscribe now and join us on this journey through history. Kenley, struck repeatedly throughout August, somehow had its operational strength restored. Biggin Hill, which should have been devastated, displayed clear evidence of active fighter operations. Reinhardt leaned back in his chair, removing his spectacles to rub tired eyes. 42 years old, he had spent most of his career in military intelligence, first in the Great War, then in the interwar years building the Luftwaffe's reconnaissance capabilities. He was good at his job, methodical and analytical, more comfortable with data than people. His superiors valued him for his attention to detail, his ability to extract useful intelligence from fragmentary information. But that same attention to detail now confronted him with a problem that threatened everything the Luftwaffe command believed about the air campaign over England. His assistant, Lieutenant Franz Weber, appeared at his elbow with another stack of interrogation reports from downed RAF pilots. Weber was young, enthusiastic, still excited by the prospect of German victory. He placed the files on Reinhardt's desk with a smile, commenting that the British pilots seemed increasingly demoralized, exactly as expected after months of combat. Reinhardt thanked him absently and began reading through the reports. But instead of confirming Weber's optimism, the interrogations only deepened his concern. The captured pilots spoke of full squadrons, of replacement aircraft arriving regularly, of new pilots fresh from training schools. One Hurricane pilot, shot down over Kent 3 days ago, had casually mentioned that his squadron received 4 new Mark II Hurricanes just last week, better armed and faster than the earlier models. Reinhardt pulled out his master ledger, a thick notebook where he maintained his personal assessment of RAF fighter strength. The official estimates, the ones reported up the chain of command, showed steady attrition of British fighters. According to those figures, the RAF had started July with approximately 600 operational fighters. After 3 months of intensive combat, losses should have reduced that number significantly. The daily combat reports from Luftwaffe units claimed hundreds of RAF fighters destroyed. Even accounting for overclaiming, which Reinhardt knew was inevitable in the chaos of air combat, the British should be running desperately short of aircraft. Yet everything he was seeing suggested the opposite. He began pulling files from his cabinet, spreading them across the desk in chronological order. July reports, August reports, September reports. He cross-referenced reconnaissance photos with combat claims, interrogation reports with signals intelligence, building a comprehensive picture. And the more he compiled, the clearer the disturbing pattern became. In July, his calculations suggested the RAF had roughly 600 fighters available. By his current count, accounting for all known losses and subtracting them from estimated production, the British should have perhaps 400 fighters remaining, probably fewer. But the evidence before him suggested they had at least 700 operational fighters, possibly more. Somehow, impossibly, RAF Fighter Command had grown stronger during 3 months of brutal attrition warfare. Reinhardt stood and walked to the wall map that dominated one side of the intelligence section. Colored pins marked RAF airfields, each pin representing estimated squadron strength based on the latest intelligence. He had updated this map himself just yesterday, following the official assessment methodology. But now, looking at it with fresh perspective. He realized the map showed what his superiors wanted to see rather than what actually existed. The pins showed a weakening enemy, fighter strength concentrated around London, secondary bases damaged and barely operational. But the reconnaissance photos told a different story. They showed dispersed operations, satellite airfields being utilized, squadrons rotating between bases to avoid concentrated attacks. The British were adapting, compensating, surviving far better than German intelligence had predicted. Major Ernst Becker, Reinhardt's superior and head of the intelligence section, entered the room carrying a briefing folder. Becker was a career officer, competent but cautious, more concerned with pleasing his commanders and challenging their assumptions. He paused beside Reinhardt's desk, glancing at the scattered photographs and reports with mild curiosity. He asked if Reinhardt had finished compiling tomorrow's intelligence summary, the one that would be presented to General Kesselring and possibly forwarded to Reichsmarshal Göring himself. Reinhardt hesitated, then asked Becker if he had time to review some troubling inconsistencies in the data. Becker frowned, checking his watch, clearly pressed for time but willing to listen. Reinhardt walked him through his analysis, showing the reconnaissance photos, the interrogation reports, the production estimates. He explained his calculations carefully, demonstrating how the official assessment of RAF strength did not match the observable evidence. He pointed out that if the British truly had only 400 fighters remaining, they could not possibly be maintaining the level of resistance the Luftwaffe was encountering. Every major raid met determined opposition. Fighter sweeps over England consistently engaged RAF squadrons in strength. The mathematics simply did not work unless the British had significantly more aircraft than German intelligence believed. Becker listened with growing discomfort, his expression shifting from interest to concern to something like irritation. When Reinhardt finished, Becker was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence spread across the desk. Then he asked the question Reinhardt had been dreading. What was Reinhardt suggesting? That all their intelligence estimates for the past 3 months were wrong? That the Reichsmarschall strategy, based on the assumption of declining RAF strength, was fundamentally flawed? Did Reinhardt understand the implications of what he was saying? Reinhardt met his superior's gaze steadily and said yes, he understood completely. But understanding the implications did not change the facts. The evidence suggested their assessment of RAF fighter strength was dangerously inaccurate. Becker shook his head slowly, his face troubled. He said that Reinhardt's analysis was interesting, certainly worth further investigation, but it was not conclusive. Reconnaissance photos could be misleading. Interrogation reports from captured pilots were notoriously unreliable. The British might be moving aircraft between bases to create an illusion of strength. Production estimates were just that, estimates, subject to error. There were many possible explanations for the discrepancies Reinhardt had identified, and jumping to catastrophic conclusions based on incomplete data would be irresponsible. The official assessment stood. RAF Fighter Command was weakening under sustained pressure, exactly as predicted. Victory was within reach if the Luftwaffe maintained its offensive. Reinhardt wanted to argue, but recognized futility when he saw it. Becker had not rejected his analysis based on evidence, but on organizational pressure and personal risk aversion. Challenging the official narrative meant challenging Göring, potentially derailing the entire campaign strategy, making enemies of powerful men who did not tolerate contradiction. It was safer to maintain the comfortable fiction that everything was proceeding according to plan. Reinhardt understood this dynamic intellectually, had seen it operate throughout his career, but understanding it did not make the situation less dangerous. If his analysis was correct, the Luftwaffe was walking blindly into disaster. Its strategy built on false assumptions about an enemy who was not collapsing, but instead growing stronger with each passing week. 3 days later, Reinhardt found himself in a staff car driving toward Luftwaffe headquarters in Brussels, summoned for a special intelligence briefing. The September countryside rolled past his window, French farms showing autumn colors, civilians going about their daily routines as if no war existed. But Reinhardt barely noticed the scenery. His mind remained focused on the briefcase resting on his lap, containing the unauthorized analysis he compiled over sleepless nights. Despite Becker's dismissal, Reinhardt had continued his investigation, driven by professional obligation and growing certainty that disaster loomed if someone did not speak truth to power. Weber sat beside him in the staff car, nervous and excited in equal measure. The young lieutenant had helped compile the data, though Reinhardt suspected Weber did not fully grasp the implications of what they had discovered. Weber viewed this summons to headquarters as career advancement, an opportunity to impress senior officers. Reinhardt knew better. He was about to challenge the fundamental assumptions underlying the entire air campaign against Britain. Such challenges were rarely welcomed, even when correct, especially when correct. The headquarters complex buzzed with activity when they arrived, officers hurrying between buildings, dispatch riders arriving with urgent messages, the machinery of military command in full operation. Reinhardt was directed to a conference room where a dozen senior officers had already gathered, including General Kesselring himself, commander of Luftflotte 2. Maps covered the walls showing England, fighter bases marked with symbols indicating estimated strength. Reinhardt recognized his own intelligence assessments incorporated into those maps, the official numbers that showed RAF fighter command weakening steadily, numbers he now believed were dangerously wrong. Kesselring was a competent officer, respected by his subordinates, but he operated under immense pressure from Göring and ultimately from Hitler himself. The invasion of England had been postponed repeatedly, waiting for the Luftwaffe to achieve air superiority. Every briefing, every intelligence assessment was scrutinized for evidence that the goal was achievable, that victory remained within reach. Reinhardt understood the organizational dynamics at play. These men needed good news, needed confirmation that their strategy was working. What he was about to tell them was the opposite of what they wanted to hear. The briefing began with operational updates from various units. Bomber losses from yesterday's raids, fighter claims against RAF aircraft, damage assessments of British airfields. The numbers painted a picture of grinding attrition warfare, where the Luftwaffe maintained the initiative despite mounting costs. Then attention turned to intelligence estimates, and Becker stood to present the official assessment. RAF fighter command strength estimated at 420 operational aircraft, down from 600 in July. Pilot quality declining as experienced aviators were lost and replaced with inadequately trained recruits. Airfield infrastructure degraded from repeated bombing. Victory achievable within weeks if pressure maintained. Kesselring nodded with satisfaction, asking detailed questions that Becker answered with confidence. Other officers contributed their observations, all supporting the narrative of British weakness and imminent collapse. Reinhardt sat quietly, waiting for his moment, feeling the weight of contrary evidence in his briefcase. Finally, Kesselring turned to him directly, asking if intelligence section had anything to add to the assessment. Reinhardt stood, feeling every eye in the room turned toward him. This was the moment. He could remain silent, preserve his career, let events unfold as they would, or he could speak truth and accept whatever consequences followed. Reinhardt began carefully, acknowledging the thoroughness of Becker's presentation, while noting certain anomalies that warranted attention. He described the reconnaissance photos showing unexpected aircraft strength at bombed airfields. He cited interrogation reports indicating full squadron strengths and regular replacement deliveries. He presented production estimates suggesting British aircraft manufacturing had actually increased during the summer months, not decreased as assumed. He walked them through his alternative calculation, demonstrating how the evidence suggested RAF Fighter Command possessed not 400, but perhaps 750 operational fighters, 25% more than they had possessed in July. The room fell silent as Reinhardt finished. Officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Becker's face had gone pale, whether from anger or fear Reinhardt could not determine. Kesselring leaned forward, his expression unreadable, studying the charts Reinhardt had distributed. Then the questions began, sharp and skeptical. How could Reinhardt be certain the reconnaissance photos were recent and not deliberately mislabeled by the British? What evidence supported his production estimates beyond speculation? Was he suggesting that every combat claim made by Luftwaffe pilots over 3 months was exaggerated? Did he realize the implications of what he was proposing? Reinhardt answered each question methodically, presenting his evidence, acknowledging uncertainties while defending his core conclusion. The official assessment did not match observable reality. Either British aircraft production vastly exceeded German intelligence estimates, or Luftwaffe combat claims were significantly inflated, or some combination of both. Regardless of the specific mechanism, the result was clear. RAF Fighter Command remained a formidable force, not a defeated enemy on the verge of collapse. Continuing the current strategy based on false assumptions about British weakness would lead to escalating Luftwaffe losses without achieving the objective of air superiority. Colonel Heinrich Schmid, Chief Intelligence Officer for the entire Luftwaffe, spoke next. His tone was icy, controlled, dangerous. He stated that Reinhardt analysis was interesting, but fundamentally flawed. German intelligence had multiple sources confirming British weakness. Signals intercepts showed RAF controllers struggling to coordinate depleted squadrons. Agent reports from England described low morale and equipment shortages. The combat claims, while subject to some overcounting as Reinhardt correctly noted, showed clear patterns of declining British resistance. To suggest the enemy had somehow grown stronger despite months of intensive bombing defied logic and evidence. Schmid concluded by questioning whether Reinhardt's pessimistic assessment might reflect personal defeatism rather than objective analysis. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Defeatism was a serious charge, one that could end careers or worse. Reinhardt felt anger rising but forced it down, maintaining professional composure. He stated clearly that his loyalty to Germany and the Luftwaffe was beyond question, that his analysis reflected only his best professional judgment based on available evidence, that he would be failing his duty if he remained silent about intelligence failures that could cost German lives and strategic objectives. If his superiors chose to reject his assessment, that was their prerogative, but he would not withdraw his findings or pretend problems did not exist simply because acknowledging them was uncomfortable. Kesselring raised his hand, cutting off further argument. He said that Reinhardt's concerns were noted and would be investigated further. However, operational planning would continue based on the current intelligence consensus until more definitive evidence emerged. The meeting was dismissed. Officers filed out, most avoiding eye contact with Reinhardt. Only Weber remained behind, looking shaken, finally understanding professional risk his superior had taken. Reinhardt gathered his materials slowly, feeling the weight of failure. He had spoken his truth, presented his evidence, done everything professionally possible, and it had changed nothing. In the staff car returning to the chateau, Weber asked quietly whether Reinhardt truly believed the British had more fighters now than in July. Reinhardt looked out the window at the French countryside, thinking about the question. Did he believe it? His analysis suggested it strongly, but intelligence work rarely offered absolute certainty. There was always room for interpretation, for alternative explanations, for honest disagreement. Yet certain patterns could not be ignored. The British were still fighting effectively after months of attrition. They should not have survived. That basic fact demanded explanation, and the most logical explanation was that German intelligence had fundamentally miscalculated enemy strength and industrial capacity. Reinhardt told Weber that belief was less important than evidence, that an intelligence officer's job was not to believe but to analyze and report findings regardless of whether those findings were welcome. Weber nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. They rode in silence for several miles before Weber asked what would happen next. Reinhardt considered the question carefully. Officially, his report would be filed and forgotten, dismissed as the excessive caution of a pessimistic analyst. Operationally, the Luftwaffe would continue its offensive, expecting British collapse that would not materialize. Eventually, probably soon, reality would force acknowledgement that something had gone terribly wrong with German intelligence assessments. But by then, how many more pilots would be lost? How much longer would the war continue based on false premises? Back at the chateau, Reinhardt found a message waiting on his desk. Becker wanted to see him immediately. Reinhardt climbed the stairs of Becker's office, knowing what was coming. His superior stood by the window, back turned, tension visible in his shoulders. Without preamble, Becker said that Reinhardt's performance of the briefing had been unacceptable, that he had undermined the intelligence section's credibility, that he had embarrassed his superiors in front of senior command. Reinhardt had a choice. He could accept reassignment to a less sensitive position, or he could request extended leave for health reasons. Either way, his time in operational intelligence was finished. Reinhardt accepted the news without argument. He had known the professional cost before speaking, had chosen to pay it anyway. He told Becker he would take the reassignment, preferring honest emotion to the fiction of health leave. Becker nodded stiffly, clearly relieved the confrontation was ending quickly. Reinhardt was to report to a statistical analysis section in Berlin, compiling historical data, far from operational decisions. A death sentence for his career, but at least an honest one. He was dismissed. Reinhardt returned to his desk, began packing his personal files, the master ledger with his calculations, the evidence that no one wanted to see. Weber helped him pack in silence, understanding now what integrity cost in wartime bureaucracies. As Reinhardt prepared to depart, the young lieutenant asked one final question. Had it been worth it? Speaking truth knowing it would be rejected, sacrificing his career for analysis that changed nothing? Reinhardt paused, considering honestly. He did not know if it had been worth it. He knew only that remaining silent would have been worse, that personal integrity sometimes demanded actions whose utility could not be measured in immediate results. Perhaps someday, when historians examined this campaign, his reports would provide evidence of what had gone wrong and why. That was poor consolation, but it was something. October brought cold rains to Berlin, and a new routine for Reinhardt in his statistical analysis office. The work was mundane, compiling historical data on aircraft production, organizing old reconnaissance reports into archives, tasks designed to keep him busy and irrelevant. He shared a small office with two clerks who treated him with cautious respect, aware he had been demoted but unsure why. Reinhardt worked methodically through his assignments, maintaining professional standards even in exile, while his mind remained focused on the campaign, continuing over England without him. News from the front arrived through official communiques and conversations overheard in corridors. The Luftwaffe had shifted tactics in early October, abandoning daylight raids on airfields in favor of bombing London and other cities. Reinhardt recognized the strategic pivot for what it was, admission of failure disguised as tactical flexibility. The Luftwaffe could not achieve air superiority over RAF Fighter Command because Fighter Command remained far stronger than intelligence assessments indicated. So the bombing campaign redirected toward civilian targets, hoping to break British morale instead. It was a tacit acknowledgement that Reinhardt had been correct, though no one would say so explicitly. Weber wrote occasionally, careful letters that said little of substance but conveyed much between the lines. The intelligence section continued reporting declining RAF strength, even as Luftwaffe losses mounted. Becker had been promoted, rewarded for maintaining optimistic assessments that pleased his superiors. New analysts had replaced Reinhardt, younger officers more willing to interpret data in ways that supported existing strategy. Weber himself was considering requesting transfer, uncomfortable with the disconnect between official reports and observable reality. Reinhardt wrote back cautioning patience, suggesting Weber could serve better by remaining in position, quietly maintaining accurate records that might prove valuable later. In late October, Reinhardt received an unexpected visitor at his Berlin office. Captain Thomas Hoffmann, a Luftwaffe fighter pilot he had met briefly the previous year, appeared asking to speak privately. They walked through a nearby park, autumn leaves crunching underfoot, while Hoffmann described his experiences flying over England. The captain was blunt. RAF opposition remained fierce. Squadrons appeared at full strength whenever the Luftwaffe crossed the channel. Losses were mounting among experienced German pilots. Hoffmann had heard rumors about Reinhardt's disputed intelligence assessment and wanted confirmed directly. Had Reinhardt truly concluded the British were stronger than official estimates indicated? Reinhardt answered carefully, aware that discussing his analysis could be construed as spreading defeatism. He confirmed his assessment without elaborating, noting that operational pilots like Hoffmann were better positioned to judge enemy strength than staff officers far from combat. Hoffmann nodded grimly, saying that every pilot knew the truth, even if command refused to acknowledge it. The British were not collapsing. Their fighters kept coming. Their pilots fought with skill and determination. Yet intelligence briefings continued insisting victory was imminent if pressure maintained. The disconnect was destroying pilot morale more effectively than enemy action. They discussed the broader implications as cold rain began falling. Hoffman believed the window for invading England had closed, that autumn weather would soon make cross-channel operations impossible until spring. By spring, British defenses would be even stronger, American aid would increase. The strategic situation would deteriorate further. Germany had lost the Battle of Britain not through military defeat, but through intelligence failure and organizational unwillingness to acknowledge uncomfortable truths. Hoffman asked if Reinhardt thought anyone would be held accountable. Reinhardt said no, that military bureaucracies rarely punished optimism, no matter how divorced from reality, that scapegoats would be found among field commanders, while staff officers who provided false assessments would continue their careers undamaged. November arrived with its short days and early darkness. The Blitz continued, but daylight operations over England had largely ceased. Tacit admission that air superiority remained unachieved. Reinhardt learned through unofficial channels that Kesselring had been reassigned to the Eastern Front, preparations beginning for operations against the Soviet Union. The failure in the West was being papered over, attention redirected toward new campaigns where initial optimism might yet prove justified. Reinhardt wondered if anyone had learned anything from the intelligence failures over Britain, or if the same mistakes would simply repeat on a larger scale. His own situation remained unchanged. The reassignment was permanent. His career in operational intelligence finished. He had made peace with that outcome, finding satisfaction in maintaining integrity even at professional cost. But isolation wore on him. He missed the work, missed feeling connected to events that mattered, missed the intellectual challenge of analyzing complex situations. The statistical compilations that filled his days were mindless tasks that any competent clerk could perform. He was being warehoused, his experience and expertise wasted, punishment for speaking truth to power. In December, Weber visited Berlin on official business and met Reinhardt for dinner at a quiet restaurant. Over schnitzel and beer, Weber provided updates from Luftflotte 2. The intelligence section had finally revised its estimates of RAF strength upward, acknowledging what Reinhardt had argued months earlier. But the revision came quietly, without fanfare or admission of previous error. Becker presented it as new information rather than correction of old mistakes. No one mentioned Reinhardt's earlier analysis. No one suggested he had been right all along. The revision simply appeared in briefing documents, as if the intelligence section had discovered this truth independently rather than having it pointed out by a subordinate they subsequently punished. Weber asked if Reinhardt felt vindicated. Reinhardt considered the question while watching snow fall past a restaurant window. Vindication implied some form of recognition or restoration, neither of which had occurred or would occur. His analysis had been proven correct by events, but that correctness brought no professional benefit and had not prevented the strategic failure predicted. He supposed there was personal satisfaction in having been right, but that satisfaction was cold comfort against the knowledge that his warnings had been ignored, that pilots had died unnecessarily, that the campaign had failed partly because intelligence failures went uncorrected until too late. They talked late into the evening. Two professionals try and make sense of a system that valued conformity over accuracy, that punished honest analysis while rewarding politically convenient assessments. Weber confessed he was losing faith in the intelligence apparatus, questioning whether any analysis that contradicted official narratives could ever receive fair hearing. Reinhardt offered what encouragement he could, suggesting that maintaining professional standards individually was worthwhile even when the larger system failed, that honest work in exile served some purpose even if only as witness to what had gone wrong. Weber seemed unconvinced but appreciated the effort. After Weber departed, Reinhardt walked home through snowy Berlin streets, thinking about the path that had led him here. A year ago, he had been a valued intelligence officer, trusted advisor to senior commanders, professional success seemingly assured. Now he was exiled to a dead-end posting, his career destroyed by the unforgivable sin of being correct at an inconvenient time. Yet he could not regret his choices. Remaining silent, maintaining false assessments to preserve his position, would have violated everything he believed about professional duty and personal integrity. Some costs were worth paying. Some truths demanded to be spoken regardless of consequences. He had paid the cost and spoken the truth. History would judge whether that had mattered. Winter deepened and the war continued, expanding eastward as Hitler turned attention toward the Soviet Union. Reinhardt remained at his desk in Berlin, compiling statistics, organizing archives, maintaining professional standards and work that no one noticed or valued. The Battle of Britain had ended in strategic failure disguised as tactical adjustment, the intelligence failures that contributed to that outcome already fading from organizational memory. No lessons would be learned. No accountability would be assigned. The same mistakes would repeat in different theaters, with different commanders making the same errors. Reinhardt understood this with weary certainty, understood that his small act of professional courage had changed nothing in the larger machinery of war and bureaucracy. Yet on quiet evenings, reading through his old reports and calculations, Reinhardt found a measure of peace. He had done his duty as he understood it, had maintained integrity when pressured to abandon it, had spoken truth even knowing it would be rejected. That had to be enough because it was all he had. The Battle of Britain was lost partly because German intelligence had systematically miscalculated enemy strength, had reported what commanders wanted to hear rather than what evidence indicated, had valued political convenience over operational accuracy. Reinhardt had tried to correct those failures and been punished for the attempt. But his reports remained, filed in archives, testimony to what had gone wrong and why. Perhaps someday someone would read them and understand. Perhaps someday the lesson would be learned. It was a slim hope, but it sustained him to the long Berlin winter as the war ground onward and history repeated itself in ways he had already foreseen and been powerless to prevent. If this story of intelligence failure and professional integrity resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from World War II. Share your thoughts in the comments about the importance of honest intelligence assessment, and like this video to help us bring more historical narratives to light. What other intelligence failures from history should we explore? Let us know. And thank you for joining us on this journey through the complexities of war, truth, and the cost of speaking honestly in difficult times.